It is July. You walk out to the tomato plant you have cared for since spring. At the bottom, everything looks right. Green tomatoes are hanging on the vine. The plant is taller, darker, fuller than it has looked all season. But move your eyes higher. The new yellow flowers are drying before they become fruit. Some fall and leave nothing behind. No baby tomato. No swelling. Just an empty joint where the next cluster should have started. That is the trap. The bottom of the plant is showing you the past. The top of the plant is showing you what you may lose next. And by the time those flowers dry and drop, the problem may have started days earlier, inside the plant where you could not see it. There is still a window to save the next round, but it is smaller than most gardeners think. In the next few minutes, you will see the 3 signs that tell you whether your next tomatoes still have a chance, and the one mistake that can make those flowers drop faster. That is the trap in July. The plant looks like it has already proven itself. You see fruit hanging low on the vine, green and swelling, and your brain relaxes. The hard part is over. It's set fruit. Now you just keep going. Some watering, same feeding, maybe a little more fertilizer, because the plant is finally producing, and you want the next round to come faster. But higher up, the plant is telling a different story. In the morning, a yellow flower still looks alive. By evening, the tiny stem behind it bends like a burnt match. 2 days later, there is no baby tomato underneath it, just an empty joint. That is the first place July hides the problem. The fruit below is not today's report. It is old news. Those tomatoes were made under a different sky, cooler nights, less heat pressure, less fruit pulling energy away from the flowers above. But the new flowers are living under July's rules. Hotter afternoons, warmer nights, less stored sugar by morning. The flower may still open yellow and perfect, but inside, it may already be too weak to become fruit. That is why looking at the fruit is the wrong test. You are not asking, did this plant make tomatoes before? You are asking, can the flowers above them still become the next flush? And the frightening part is the timing. By the time a blossom dries and drops, the problem did not start that morning. Researchers have found that this damage can begin 7 to 15 days before the flower ever opens. So when you see the blossom fall today, you are not watching the problem begin. You are watching the result of something the plant started deciding almost 2 weeks ago. That means reacting after it falls is too late for that flower. But it may not be too late for the next one. So before you water more, feed more, or blame the plant, look higher. Look at the flowers above the fruit, because that is where July is telling you whether the next harvest is still alive. Walk up to the plant like you are checking it for the first time. Do not start with the tomatoes. Let your eyes move past them, up to the fresh yellow flowers above. That is where the next harvest is trying to happen. And this is the strange part. A tomato flower can look alive longer than it actually is. It can open bright yellow in the morning. The petals can look clean. The center can look untouched. But underneath it, there should be a tiny green beginning. A small swelling. A baby tomato starting to form. If that flower opens, dries within 2 days, and leaves nothing behind but an empty joint, that cluster is slipping away. Now look at the little stem behind the unopened buds. If that stem is already turning yellow before the flower opens, the plant may have started letting go before you ever saw the problem. Then step back and compare the plant. If the upper flowers are dropping more often than the lower ones, the new flush is not just unlucky. It is under stress. This is why good gardeners do not only watch the fruit they already have. They watch the flowers that are still deciding. Because tomato pollination has a narrow comfort zone. Cool nights let the pollen work. But when nights push too warm, especially above 75 degrees, the flower can still open like nothing is wrong. While inside, the tiny path that should turn pollen into fruit has already stopped. That is the hidden danger. The flower does not always look damaged before it fails. So today, look higher. Find the open flowers above the fruit. Look underneath them. If there is no tiny green tomato forming, the plant is telling you something before the next flush disappears completely. But the deeper question is this: why are those upper flowers losing the fight? The answer starts with the fruit already hanging below them. The answer starts with the fruit you are proud of. Those first tomatoes look like proof that the plant is winning. And they are. But inside the plant, they have moved to the front of the line. The leaves make sugar all day, but the swelling fruit below are the loudest demand on that sugar. They are not just hanging there. They are pulling. Not 10%, not 20, In measured tomato plants, developing fruit can take 85 to 90% of the sugar the plant makes. That leaves the new flowers above with whatever is left. Picture it this way. The leaves are the kitchen. The lower fruit eat first. The upper flowers wait in the doorway. And in July, there may not be much left. That is the contradiction. The first tomatoes are proof the plant succeeded before. But they may also be the reason the next flowers are starving now. The plant is not weak. It is protecting the fruit that already exists. And the flowers above become a risk it may not be able to afford. But this is only the first layer. Because July is not just increasing demand, it is also cutting the supply. And the worst part happens after sunset. A July night looks harmless. The garden goes quiet. The leaves stop moving. But on hot nights, the plant is not resting. It is spending. All day, the leaves work to make sugar. Then the warm night keeps burning through that sugar just to stay alive. By morning, there is less left for the flowers. So a blossom can open yellow and clean, while the pollen inside is already too weak to finish the job. The plant does not have to wilt to be losing the next flush. When nights push above 75 degrees, the tiny path pollen needs can slow down or stop. The flower still opens. But the road from flower to fruit has already been cut. Then ABA begins to rise. Think of it as the plant's release order. Do not spend more energy here. A tiny separation layer forms behind the blossom. The stem weakens. The flower lets go. You could have watered perfectly that morning. It still would have dropped, because the decision was older than your watering can. That is why July tomato plants can look green and full, but stop making the next flush. The flowers are present, but the nights are too warm for them to finish becoming fruit. And the next mistake usually starts with the thing that feels most responsible: fertilizer. When flowers start falling, fertilizer feels like the responsible move. The plant looks like it needs help, so you feed it. But in July heat, that can send the wrong signal. High nitrogen does not tell the plant, hold these flowers. It tells the plant, grow. More leaves, more stems, more green weight to carry. And above 90 degrees, that extra growth becomes another demand on a plant already deciding what to let go. The flowers do not need force. They need steadiness. There is also a deeper calcium problem below the soil. We will come back to that. For now, do not push high nitrogen into a tomato plant already dropping flowers in heat. Wait until the weather softens and new fruit have set. Then feed lightly. Because in July, the goal is not to make the plant do more. The goal is to help it hold what is left. This is the moment to read the plant before the window closes. The fruit below tells you what already happened. The flowers above tell you what is still at risk. Look under the open flowers near the top. If a flower opens, dries within 48 hours, and leaves no tiny green tomato behind, that cluster is already slipping. Now look behind the unopened buds. If the stem is turning yellow before the flower opens, the plant may be preparing to release it before you ever get a chance to save it. Then step back. If the top is dropping flowers faster than the lower part, the next flush is under pressure right now. Two signs do not mean the plant is finished. They mean the window is narrowing. And this is where the next few days matter. Do not splash the surface and walk away. Give the roots steady water about 1.5 inches a week, soaking 8 to 10 inches down. Then keep that moisture from swinging. 3 to 4 inches of mulch helps stop the root zone from jumping between hot, dry, wet, and hotter again. Those swings are when a stressed plant starts dropping what it cannot carry. Give the flowers a cooler window in the worst part of the afternoon. A 30 to 40% shade cloth, lifted above the plant, can soften the heat without putting the whole plant in darkness. And while the plant is trying to hold flowers, stop pushing high nitrogen. Do not ask it to grow more leaves while it is struggling to keep the next flush alive. These are not extra chores. They are ways of buying time. A steadier root zone, a cooler afternoon, less pressure to grow leaves. That is what gives the next flowers a chance to finish becoming fruit. Because once that window closes, the plant will not announce it. You will only see it later, as empty joints where tomatoes should have been. Now you know the mistake was not looking at the plant. It was trusting the wrong part of it. The fruit showed you the past. The flowers showed you the next flush while there was still time. But there is one place the warning starts even earlier. Below the soil, because sometimes you do the visible work right. You water carefully. You mulch the root zone. You shade the plant. You stop pushing high nitrogen. And the next flush still does not come. Or worse, it starts, then the young fruit fails from the bottom. A dark spot appears. The base turns black. The fruit that looks safe begins to rot underneath. That means something the fruit needed did not arrive in time. Not because you ignored the plant, but because the problem was moving through the roots before the leaves could show it. Water movement, calcium transport, soil moisture swings, heat stress around the roots. That is why two gardens can look almost identical in July. Same watering, same shade, same healthy green plants, but one carries the next flush into August, while the other ends with empty joints and black-bottom fruit. So when you check your plant today, look for the first sign that showed up: dry flowers, yellow stems, or upper clusters dropping faster. Write the sign you saw. Because if everything above the soil looks right, but the next flush still fails, the answer may already be moving underneath the plant, before the next flower even gets its chance to become fruit.